Good morning, everyone. It is 9:32 and I'm a little bit late this morning because I just had out-of-town guests arrive for the weekend. I'm so excited. Sorry while I print myself as I get online because I barely had to brush my hair. How's everyone doing today? Good morning. Good morning, Marilyn Choi. Good morning, twice as nice celeb and do Willie Lab. Good morning. The national director joined us. Malik joined us. Mrs. Naples is joining us. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Dr. Jenny Hansen, or Mrs. US of A Classic. Well, here we are on a Friday morning. And for those of you who are just now logging on, welcome to 16 and me. Before we get started, I want to let you know that those of you who have the iPhones and have Clubhouse, that we open an official site for all of our narcissistic abuse trauma recovery that we do. So you can find us on narcissist trauma recovery with Dr. Tracy over on Clubhouse. So you can definitely join us there. So good morning, Sunshine Girl. Nice to see you. You're going to be our guest in a few weeks here. So to everyone, happy Friday. It is the last Friday. Is it the last Friday in April? And welcome to 16 and me. So really quickly, for those of you who are joining us the first time, who is 16 and why is it so important that we know about her? Well, 16, I always say that within every woman, I believe that there are about 17 of us running around inside, 17 different personas. And all of us, we get along, we all know each other, right? And we all get along famously, except for one. And in Tracyland, her name is 16. So in the world of psychology, they call 16 the pathological critic. In the world of Buddhism, they call it Maya. In the world of some spiritual quarters, some maybe think the devil's voice. I don't think that that's the truth, though. Or they call it the shadow feminine. So what exactly is 16? Well, 16 is that inner critic, that internal voice that can wage war inside of us. And if we're not familiar or aware that those internal campaigns are taking place against ourselves, well, that internal self-sabotage can literally affect our life physically, emotionally, spiritually, sexually, with our dreams, with our hopes, with our finances. I mean, it is like if a stinky person walks in the room and has really bad BO, and suddenly all you can think about is this awful stench in the room that's coming from this person. Well, when we allow our 16 to run wild with no reins on it, that's what happens to our life. This awful stench just comes from within us. And the worst thing about it is that it attacks us from the inside out. So we can be like all perfect on the outside and all put together, and people have no idea the war that's waging itself inside of our mind. Does any of this making sense to you all? Because I know that this show is continuing to go on because lots of people are really learning to get in touch with their 16. So I'm going to send out a whole bunch of waves. Hello, Mrs. Curvey Classic 2020. Hello, Kroll. Hello, savoring my life. Do I like that? All right. So one of the things that I like to educate about 16 is that 16 is that inner critical voice that lives within us. And this critical voice that lives within us, it stems from some sort of a trauma that we experienced when we were young. So what happens is that if that trauma wound, and that's why I'm on to healing that internal emotional system, because it will speak to us from within. Good defining moments create good internal chatter. bad defining moments create the 16. And so one of the things that I like to say, and to the way I like to introduce 16 is, imagine that 16 goes into your emotional closet, and she walks around your emotional closet, and depending on what's happening in your life and on your internal trauma wounds, 16 will go and just put on any darn outfit that she so chooses, that reinforces, that will clothe these trauma wounds to get out and chat at us. Making sense? So what are some of the different clothes that she can put on? Well, in my closet, she walks around sometimes and she'll like come out as the judger, the great judger. Mine is like a head bobbler. Like, she likes to bobble her head at me a lot and say like, oh my gosh, do you really honestly think that you are loved? She can come out as the perfectionist. She can come out as we talked about in our last week's class, the not enougher. Do you really think that you have the right to experience that great thing? You? What makes you think you're... Okay, these are all the internal chats that go on inside of us. So today, I want to introduce you to another piece of wardrobe that our 16 can put on. And that's the bar raiser. So what exactly is the bar raiser? Well, first, let me just say hello, Masha. Hello, Melody. It's nice to see you. Hello, Grammy Monkey. Nice to see you all. Thank you for logging on to 16 and Me. I'm Dr. Tracy. All right. And so today I want to introduce you to a wardrobe that 16 can put on our thoughts, which is called the bar raiser. And the bar raiser is that internal voice inside of you that is just constantly raising the bar. That you set a goal for yourself, and either because it just puts an impossible expectation on your life, you don't reach it, and then it does the other ones, like that, well, I told you so, right? Or the bar raiser will set that bar in your life. And when you achieve that goal that you worked really hard to achieve, the very first thing that will launch in 16's voices, well, don't let this be the highlight of your life. I mean, yeah, you did win, but there was probably a reason why they kind of gave it to you, or, maybe like the best people really didn't show up and you were like the default person that could win, or a variety of different chants that 16 can say to us to never allow us to reach a goal and celebrate and enjoy that moment of accomplishment and turn it into what's called a positive life-defining moment, that when we reflect back on our life, we have this moment to look back at and say, look, my hard work turned into a reward and I did it, and good for me. You see, the 16 doesn't allow, the 16 bar raiser never allows us to do that. So the question then becomes, what's behind this? Where does this chronic bar raising chant come from, this internal voice? Like, I'm sitting here doing that, and the whole thing about the bar is like, you go like, okay, here's the bar and I'm gonna make it finally, just like by the skin of my teeth, I'm gonna make it. And all of a sudden 16 goes, oh no, actually, you know what? This is what's gonna make you enough. You get it? So we say, oh my gosh, I'm going to be valued and enough here. And even if we accomplish it, she pushes it up and says, no, not really. This is what it really takes for you to be enough. So where does this bar raising, or what does this bar raising voice stem from? Well, every single costume that 16 puts on, it always goes back to a trauma wound. And the bar raising chant of 16, the bar raising 16, I should say, it stems from either being raised in a perfectionist environment, where no matter what you did, it just wasn't enough. And Memo from Self-Love Normaland, somebody else's bar is not to be your bar in life, that we all have the right to set our own bar based on our own qualifications and expectations and joy factors of going through life. The second thing that I want you to know about this bar raising 16 is that one of the reasons that and one of the ways that you'll find that you have a bar raising voice inside of you is that you will find that you surround yourself with people who are bar raisers. That the second that you achieve something, they're always changing where the finish line is. They're always, rather than say, dang girl, dang boy, you did it, right on, you did it, you put your skin in the game and you did it. They'll go like, oh yeah, well that's good, what's next? And they raise that bar. And what that comes from, if you find that it's happening with people around you, because what happens in the mind will eventually happen in real time, right? Is that's all about control. That's just about keeping somebody locked into the acceptance of another person. But here's the thing. If you're doing it to yourself, if you have cheerleaders all around you, and yet you have that chronic bar-raising voice launching inside of you, then that means that you are living at a disconnect with accepting yourself. Does that make sense? And so one of the reasons that we absolutely have to silence that bar raiser, or just get rid of the freaking bar altogether, is that it's impossible to live in joy if we're constantly looking for our enough and crossing that internal finish line. Because guess what? There really is no finish line in life. All right, so we have, I have my guest today on the show, and we're going to continue this conversation. That's right, Mrs. Curvey, Classic Globe 2020. There are no room for bars in universe. So I want to introduce you. Thank you, Savoring Life. It does make a lot of sense. As Jenny is getting ready to log on. Well, Jenny, we see your light. I think we're going to let her get situated here for just a moment. And Jenny's going to be sharing with us all about her bar raiser. So, Jen, I think you're going to have to, there you go. Now we can see you.
Sorry about that.
No problem. Good morning to you. Actually, it's almost
Great to see you, Dr. Tracy.
It's almost good afternoon there for you. Tell us where you are dialing in from.
I am dialing in from northern Wisconsin.
Very good. Are you guys still snowy out there?
Our snow is going away, but I'm next week headed to more snow.
In one of your in one of your competitions? Very good.
Yes,
well,
I'm going to.
Yeah, the reason that I wanted to mention your competitions is because when Jen agreed to come on the show, okay, I didn't lasso her in, is that we were having this conversation, and she was talking about, this bar raising, and Jen, first off, thank you for being on and for sharing this, because when we share, it helps untangle other people. And yeah. I like to mention that, first off, some of your credentials. I mean, I know that you're a professional skier. You are highly educated. You are a businesswoman with your own practice. You are Mrs. US of A Classique. I mean, you have so many awards and accolades behind you, and I think I need to mention that, not to sit there and brag about you in front of the viewing audience, but more so to bring home the point. And then I want to learn more about inside of you. There's that chronic bar pusher 16. So introduce us to give her name, the bar pusher, and introduce us to us. Introduce us to her.
Bar raiser. Well, first, when I was listening to you speak before I came on, I was literally sweating just listening to you, because I'm thinking about the series of events that I've gone through in my life. And when you mention the successes I've had, I think about the challenges that we're going to unfold today and what I've had to deal with to get there. So my bar raiser, before you started this program, I used to talk about how I have to consult with my committee. Um, and my bar raiser, my 16, I used to call Little Miss Fester. And she would fester inside of me, kind of like when you go to a sporting event. And I've coached a few different sports. And it's always that parent that's over coaching you that thinks they're the referee, and come on, ref, where's your glasses? And come on, let's make improvements, not excuses. And so my little Miss Fester is always working within me, which unfortunately can cause headaches and fatigue and certain health ailments. And in my profession, I see that often with my clients, is that my little Miss Fester, my 16, is constantly at me
Okay,
to
so
make improvements.
bring us into your world and let it like mine's a head bobbler and she like frowns
Yeah.
at me. So introduce us to your 16.
Well, her eye is always going like this. Her eye is always twitching because she's like waiting for me to do the next best thing. And she's just clenching and constantly like
Oh,
pushing me and pushing me.
she's a
And it's
tooth
kind of like a
clencher?
big bully.
She's
Yeah,
a
she's
teeth
such a
clencher?
bully.
Oh, she's a teeth
Oh, yeah.
clencher.
The eye, the teeth, like, come on, you're better than this. You can do more. Yeah, it's just, it's never enough. She's always kind of waiting to coach me and be the referee in my life.
Well, one of the first
Yes.
things that I want to say while it's fresh is one of the things that I've learned, and I think that every single adult, especially any adult that is training kids or raising kids, uh, needs to remember is that when I talk like this, it doesn't make us more serious, and children don't take us more serious if we talk like
And I
this.
can't always understand her.
And we're all guilty.
What are you saying to me? What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
I know.
So talking to the teeth, to all of our viewers is first off, that's a 16 talking, and secondly, it doesn't impress or influence anyone or make us more
It's so
serious.
not sexy either.
It's so not sexy. All right. So give us some of the chants that she throws at you. What are some of her 16 statements that sabotage you or level you or slaughter you from within?
Sure. Just when I think I'm, getting to my authentic best self, there's always room for improvement. There's always room for improvement. And one of my favorite quotes, which I love to live by, but she's constantly nagging with it at the same time, is to make improvements, not excuses. And those are the two things that are really coming at me. Is just especially there's always room for improvement. It's like I understand that, but can I celebrate this moment first?
Yeah, and you know what? That's such a good point because one of the difficulties with having a bar pusher 16 is that she never allows you to celebrate your accomplishments.
Right.
She never allows you, and for many of you watching, I don't know if you can relate to this, but I went through years of my life accomplishing something or watching, let me put it another way, watching other people accomplish something and them
Hmm.
really absorbing the moment, taking it in, relishing it, and allowing and celebrating themselves for the victories that they made. And
Right.
I just, I would look at them and I'm like, how do they do that? Because inside of me, even my 16 will launch and be like, oh, they really think that, see, they must have worked so much harder than you, and that's why they can celebrate. As she
Always.
bobbles her head at me, right?
Yeah. Are you defective? What are you, defective?
What are you, defective? Right. Okay, let's just say hello to a couple of our guests, and then I'm going to ask you the next question.
Sure.
Hello, Joanne Zoe. Hello. Hello, Mrs. Globe, all the way down in Dubai. Again, hello. For all of you who are joining in, thank you for your comments. Hello, Sora over in Korea. Hello, Andrea over in Colorado. Hello, Dr. Ron. We've never met. Hello, Neil. All right, so let's get back to this. All right, so when 16 launches and she begins her campaign on the inside, what happens to you on the outside? Because for those of you who have never met Jen, Jen is what, 5'10"?
My nickname's 5'12" because 6 foot is exaggerating.
Okay,
So I'm
six.
almost 6 foot.
Jenny is a 6 foot woman. And how tall are your boys?
The younger ones are 6'7" and 6'8",
Okay.
and then 4 is the short one.
So she's 5'12". As a woman, she's a professional skier. She's educated. She's accomplished. What happens to you when you are powerless against the bar raising 16? What happens to you? Just
That powerless feeling
yeah.
is debilitating. It's debilitating. I literally shut down. I am one of the more healthy people that I know. I take such good care of myself. And I have had massive weight gains from the weight of situations like this, where you just feel so defective and depleted. It's debilitating. And health issues, as healthy as I am, why would I have a hernia? Well, the stress and anxiety that you're holding in those inner trauma wounds. Every time my little Miss Fester, my 16 comes out, it's like debilitating to my health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the power of thought. And one of the things that I have learned on my recovery journey, on my reclaiming me journey, on picking up the shattered pieces of self and making the mosaic of Tracy, is that thought is everything.
Right.
Thought is everything. And what happens in our mind, it affects our body, it affects our spirituality, it affects our emotional state of being, it affects our career, and
Very true.
most important, it affects our joy. And
Yeah.
when our joy is affected, that's when you start tapping on the door to depression and anxiety and really the destruction of our mental wellness.
Mhm.
And for any of you who have gone
Absolutely.
through that, none of that for a single moment uh, is is an enjoyable experience, is a prosperous
You feel robbed.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so if, as we said, that as 16 always is launched from a trauma wound, can you navigate back to
Hmm.
somewhere in your life where you learned that it wasn't okay to stop and celebrate, or that in order to be enough, you had to accomplish enough?
Yes. So I'm the youngest of six. We have a large family. The five of my siblings are all a year apart. So they basically had their little wolf pack. And then I was 8 years later. So I was kind of brought up like an only child. But I had a couple bullies in the wolf pack. That my siblings are very successful and professional, and I was always looking up to that to try and be something. And I decided to, be a young mother and sort of do things backwards because I didn't go to get my master's and doctorate till I was in my 40s. I didn't start professionally ski racing nationally until the last several years because I feel like my life came so much later. My childhood was pretty traumatic because I was always, being bullied and having to stand up and hold my own to be someone, athletic or just to feel like I'm amounting to anything in the family. So it was always very competitive,
Yeah, and
if that
being
makes
raised
sense.
in a, yeah, it makes perfect sense, because being raised in a competitive environment, especially amongst your siblings, I mean,
Hmm.
that to me is that's a pretty tough message to be raised with, because the thing about home is supposed to be the safest place in the world. Home is to be the place that we are to be able to let down our guards, where we are
Yeah.
able to not be in competition, that we are able to celebrate our strengths, to be able to learn how to process our weaknesses, where we're able to learn and grow. And when that is removed from us, well, that is a petri dish, the birthplace of a
Oh,
16
petri
bar
dish.
raiser.
Festering.
The
Yes.
fester, exactly. And you know, part of that festering that goes back to something called rumination. And what
Yeah.
rumination is, for those of you who don't know what rumination is when we have some sort of a trauma that happens to us, and that we, because it is so not meant to happen, that whatever we experience is just, we, this is not how normal people behave and what normal people experience. And so suddenly when we experience something that we're just not supposed, we are not biologically or spiritually or emotionally supposed to physically experience, that what happens is our
Mhm.
mind goes into overdrive, and it begins, you know, well, what about this, and what about that, well, what about this, and what about that, you know, we start chewing on that cut. You're chewing
Yeah.
on rocks is what I like to call it. And it's because our emotional system is desperately searching for an answer for the insanity that we're living. But
Absolutely.
especially if we're raised with it from a childhood, the problem is that we don't know that it's insanity, and so we keep trying to solve that. I'm enough, I'm enough, I'm enough, I'm enough. And one of the ways we default into that is we set that bar, and then because we don't have an answer to why we're not enough, we keep resetting the bar and resetting the bar and resetting
Yes.
the bar. So as a child, we don't have any control over that bar that was set with us, right? But as adults, a really good thing is that our thoughts are not in control of us, that we are in control of our thoughts. And there's one thing that I want to touch on, and that is, you've made the comment a couple of times during our chat here, that what did you say? Make accomplishments, not excuses. It,
Make improvements, not excuses.
make improvements, not excuses. Which that is the total. Now, when I hear that, you know what I hear is, I hear perfectionism, and I'm a perfectionist in recovery, just to
Absolutely.
let you know. Um, and I also hear a very harsh, cruel voice. And coming from somebody who had to learn to stop being a perfectionist, no excuses. You know, one of my favorite books is, you know,
Hmm.
all about the enemy called average and things of that nature. And
Right.
I fully believe in this. I fully believe
Hmm.
in the steps of excellence, but that's a healthy voice. But here's what I would, one of the ways that we silence our 16 is to learn to speak truth back to the trauma wound. And 16 is only the voice of the trauma. And so if I was to speak to that 16 inside of you, Jen, the first thing that I would say is, thank you, 16, for reminding me of that I am and I can be better. And there is room for constant improvement in life, because we are not a static being. We are an ever evolving, ever growing being. So, of course, there's always going to be that next goal, that
Hmm.
next dream, okay? Not that next horsewhipping, that next
Right.
dream, that next expansion, that next journey that I'm going to want to step into. But part of being able to do that is to understand that there doesn't have to be a scorecard attached to it. That
Good way to put it.
perhaps, rather than, you know, allowing yourself to say, Jen, stop making excuses, just perform, perform, perform. One mantra that I've learned to start saying to myself is, well, this is not an excuse, but perhaps it's an explanation. Because we make choices. Are you ready for this? We make choices on our life based on the tools that we have at the time. And there's a really good chance that we're doing the best that we can with whatever tools we have in our toolbox. And if it means
Hmm.
that we don't come out the best and cross number one, it doesn't mean that we're less than or we're not enough. We're just doing the best that we can with the tools that we have at the time. So if
Right.
that's the real truth of the story, that you were doing your dang best, and if you were to step back from that, and I always like to take those of you who I know are moms, you were to step back from that bar raising voice and it says, don't make excuses, just accomplishments, or however she says. And you were to look at the Jen based on what she's been through and what she actually did accomplish. What would you say to somebody if it's your job to protect that inner Jen? What would you
Hmm.
say to that punishing voice?
Um, my
What
safe place is that I don't need your stamp of approval. And I finally learned that because I'm always looking for approval. And it's so unfortunate sometimes our family can be our biggest critics. And so you can't get rid of your family. You can't, you know, but you can have healthy boundaries and you can find that personal power back to say, I don't need your stamp of approval on this because it's my life and my dream and I have to own it. And I'm going to be happy and take my time and my joy in this. And if I want to move on and be better at something, that's for me to do that, not for you to push me to it. Because then you can't enjoy it.
exactly? We you can't enjoy things. One of the things that I was so reminded of this week is that, even within ourselves, it is absolutely impossible to be surrounded with an environment or with a personality type that misbehaves and that punishes or that destroys and then expects undying loyalty and
Right.
honor. And when it comes to that 16 voice inside of you, that it's just constantly moving that bar, moving that bar, moving that bar, that's not a joyous internal relationship.
Right.
And I know that you know a lot about kinesiology and everything. One thing that's coming to my mind, Jen, is if you were to go within and examine the energy that you export into supporting that voice, right? Supporting that, listening, adjusting, accomplishing on account of that voice. How much room would you have in your emotional system if you silenced it?
Hmm.
How
I would
much
love to drop some baggage once in a while.
you would drop that baggage, and if you were to
I
replace
love
that
that.
baggage with encouragement, with not excuses, but perhaps explanations. You know what I was going through at that time? Did you know I didn't have any tools? It's not an excuse why I didn't do better. It's the fact that I didn't have tools. I was a kid. And you were
Right.
to replace all that with joy, with passion of accomplishing, with living in the present and enjoying the journey to get there. Wow, what's that all about?
Right?
Said the
Can't wait.
perfectionist. So the moral of the story is, you see, to all of our viewers, I want to leave you with this. Our emotional system is like a glass of water. There is only so much space in the glass. And what goes in the glass as adults is 100% our responsibility. We can either hold on to the negative judgers or bar pushers, or that 16 voice inside of us, or we can make the choice to gently drain her from the glass and exchange this, no excuses, for a mantra that says, this is not an excuse, but perhaps it's an explanation. And I'm not saying necessarily you owe that to anybody else, but you definitely owe it to yourself, because
Yes.
we can only do what we do with the tools that we have at the time. And if we're missing tools, we're doing the best that we can. And no person in the universe deserves to be punished from within if you're simply doing the best that you can. I happen to think that you're awesome, Jen.
I
And
appreciate that.
I
You
appreciate.
mentioned too, I mean, your mind is your greatest medicine, and it's so powerful. When you get in with someone else's, all the chant that's around, if you don't block that off and leave that baggage and find a new great suitcase to fill with your own things that you love, it's your mind is your greatest medicine, and it can fool you so often.
It can. It really can. So as we come to an end, Jen, I just want to thank you so much for joining us today. For all of you who have an internal bar raiser, I want you to hydrate your soul this week with self-love, okay? Instead of excuses, just find some explanations for it and understand that you were doing the best that you can with the tools that you have at the time, and that this whole journey to accomplishing things in life, it's a journey, because the second that you cross that line, of course you're going to have new and exciting goals, but that doesn't mean that you can't just stop and give yourself that celebration for what you did. Because I'm telling this to some of you who are watching, and I don't know who you are, but you know who you are. Anybody else in your situation may have ended up crazy or dead, but you survived it and you became what you became because of the awesomeness inside of you. And that person that survived what you survived doesn't deserve for a moment to be told that she's not enough and doesn't deserve it. And those are my closing thoughts for the week. Jen, I love you lots. Thank you so much for
Thank you
joining
so
us.
much.
Great show. Any of you
Appreciate it.
who are interested in being a guest on 16 and Me, go ahead and PM me. I look forward to learning more about your 16 and helping us learn to empty the glass and learn to saturate ourselves in the healthy voice of self-love. From 16 to self-love. I think that's what we should call the show from now on.
Perfect.
All right, guys.
Absolutely.
Lots of love. Have a great, great week, and we'll see you guys next Friday.
Mwah. Great to see you.
Nice to see you.